Rogers TV.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. My name is Travis Blum, and I'm on behalf of the Stratford and District Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our 2021 federal debate. I'd like to begin by introducing our candidates for this evening. First, we've got Wayne Baker from the People's Party of Canada. Next, we've got Brendan Knight from the Liberal Party of Canada. Next, we've got Kevin Kruskowicz from the New Democratic Party. And finally, John Nader from the Conservative Party of Canada. Welcome to our candidates, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'd also like to begin this evening by thanking our sponsors, who are also our moderators for this evening. First off, I'd like to thank Orr Insurance and Investments, Fahm & Co. Professional Corp., Vancia Financial Group, and the Huron-Perth Association of Realtors. The Chamber has had a presence in this community since 1860s, when we were first incorporated. It is our mission to be the prominent business organization and to be the voice of business by championing economic prosperity and an exceptional quality of life. In keeping with our history and objective to promote good government and sound legislation at all levels of government, the Chamber is proud to host this all-candidates debate for the federal election. Our goal this evening is to focus our candidates on issues important to the community. We also want to inform voters and promote transparency and accountability among elected officials. This evening, we will be taking written questions from the audience, but we do reserve the right as an organization to review the questions for brevity. It should also be noted that interruptions from the audience will be in no way tolerated this evening. Individuals who we have determined to be disruptive to the debate will be removed from the venue. Please remember, if we run out of time to ask your question, the candidates will be available for one-on-one discussion after the formal debate has concluded. We would also like to welcome Rogers and Whitemans this evening, who will be recording the forum to be broadcast. We are also live on YouTube for the first time ever. Broadcast links will be posted on the Chamber website and Facebook page for those that missed the live broadcast this evening. At this point in time, I'd like to remind everyone that we do require you to keep your masks on during the entirety of the debate, and that we would like to continue with the social distancing we've already been experiencing here this evening. Right now, I'd like to introduce Eddie Matthews, General Manager for the Chamber, who will be the moderator for this evening. Eddie is a well-known and trusted voice in our local community, and we are confident in his ability to once again moderate the debate in a way that is fair and respectful to all of our candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Matthews.
Thanks, Travis. You want to get rid of your computer?
Yep. You don't want all the answers here?
I don't want all the answers. Thank you, Travis. Thanks so much. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And to see everybody all dressed up, this is the first time in a while. I think my socks and my tie were the things that fit the most. So I appreciate Wayne, Brendan, Kevin, and John for being a part of it this evening. I'm glad you're able to be here with us this evening, and I'll remove this just for this part of it too. And if once we start asking questions, then I'll allow you to remove your masks as well too. I'm glad you're able to be here this evening and to brave the elements that we had earlier on. I appreciate not only the candidates sharing their ideas and platforms, but having a live audience here tonight for civil discussion is terrific. And with that, I appreciate everybody being here. I'd like to start the evening off by welcoming the candidates, and we'd like to find out a little bit about each of the candidates, and we'll give each of the gentlemen 2 minutes, and we've got timers around here as well, so I encourage you to respectfully watch what they're doing, and once we run out of time, we'll then move on. We'll give each of these gentlemen 2 minutes, and we'll start in alphabetical order, and we'll start with Wayne from the People's Party of Canada. Wayne Baker.
Good evening. My name's Wayne Baker. I'm the Perth-Wellington candidate for the People's Party of Canada.
Wayne, if you can get closer to the microphone, please.
That better? I was raised on a dairy farm, but was forced out of farming by high interest rates in the early 80s. I then chose to enter the real estate world, where I finished as an independent real estate broker in Cambridge and met my wife, Marilyn. During my courtship with Marilyn, I chose to change my career to that of my current career as a tool and die maker. My business is presently located in Arthur, where I also have my residence. Since moving to Arthur, my business has grown, and I've served on the Arthur and District Chamber of Commerce, initially as a director, then as president. I also participated hotly in a hotly contested race for county council. I've always been a conservative with very strong conservative values, such as fiscal responsibility, stable government, freedom of speech, choice of movement, and freedom of speech, choice, movement, and religion. With this comes freedom to own and operate a business with minimal government interference and enjoy the fruits of one's own efforts. This step into politics is a journey of faith for both my wife and myself, and we pray for his guidance on this journey. The People's Party of Canada is a human institution subject to human frailties and mistakes, but with God's grace, I believe it can become the leading party of our true north, strong and free. For these reasons, I am part of the People's Party of Canada and believe it is the only national party seeking freedom from oppression with the best interests of the people of Canada at heart, as it is the only party that openly promotes freedom in the truest sense. Thank you for your time and interest this evening.
Thank you, Wayne. From the Liberals, Brendan, would you like to give us your bio for 2 minutes, please?
I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. My name is Brendan Knight. I'm the Liberal candidate from Perth-Wellington. I was born and raised here in Perth County, and I'm raising my kids with my wife Megan here in Stratford. I currently work as an executive assistant for a member of provincial parliament in Scarborough. In Scarborough, it was the hotspot of hotspots during the pandemic. And so I learned that strong advocacy and service to the people you elect is important. I advocate on behalf of the MPP for long-term care and health care for small businesses and supports for people so they can put food on the table for their family. If I receive the honor of your vote, I would like to bring my experience to my riding here in Perth-Wellington. First, we need to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic and get people vaccinated. Beyond that, I believe this election is about what comes next, putting solutions in place to meet the challenges we currently face. We need affordable daycare in Perth-Wellington so that all parents can fully participate in our post-COVID recovery. We need investments in healthcare and long-term care. We must support our small businesses, especially here in Stratford, when we know that tourism is the last sector to recover from the pandemic, and make home ownership more affordable. This is very much a climate election. It is a choice to either step up or step back. Without a healthy planet, we cannot have a healthy economy or healthy families. It's been a tough year and a half for everyone. We have vaccines to fight COVID and must do what is necessary to support businesses and move forward together through this pandemic. I would be honored to advocate on behalf of Perth-Wellington as your voice in Ottawa. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Brendan. Kevin, from the NDP, would you like to give us a 2-minute bio on yourself?
Thank you, Eddie. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kevin Kruskowicz. I'm an actor. I'm a handyman. I'm an entrepreneur. Originally, I'm from Southern Alberta, but my wife and I have lived here in Stratford for almost a decade now. Now, I'm up here tonight as your NDP candidate because, quite frankly, I'm tired, as I'm sure a lot of you are. Tired of promises not kept, tired of the work not being done, tired of seeing the very real Canadian value of helping out your neighbor treated as a quaint notion that couldn't possibly be affordable. Well, it's not a quaint notion. It's how we survive, and it's how we will thrive. Now, Jagmeet Singh has a very real plan, and it's based in pragmatic compassion. We will make life more affordable for all Canadians by investing in healthcare, affordable, sustainable housing, and pharmacare. We will build an economy that works better for more people by providing quality, affordable childcare, making employment insurance and accessible job training work for you, and supporting small businesses like the one my wife owns down on York Street. And we have a detailed plan to combat the climate crisis that will create good jobs within a new green infrastructure. Now, I've been out, all of us have been out on the road now probably about 3 weeks. We've been talking with folks in Perth-Wellington, and I think we can all agree that one thing is clear. They want change. They really do. And I believe that change is the NDP. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks, Kevin. And finally, from the Conservative Party, John, would you tell us a bit about yourself for 2 minutes?
Yes, thank you, Eddie, and it's great to see you back behind a microphone. It seems so natural to you. You might think of a career in broadcasting.
Never know about it.
But it's a pleasure to be here, and a big thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, the board, and their staff for putting this on. I know they're exceptionally busy right now with the Business Excellence Awards next week, so I am so honored that they took the time to host this important part of our democratic process. It's so important that we have the opportunity to discuss ideas, discuss policies, and to make our pitch in a democratic forum. So many countries around the world do not have the same opportunities and rights that we have here in Canada to choose our governments by secret ballot in a democratic means. So this is so important that we have this forum. These past 18 months have been exceptionally hard for so many Canadians, especially right here in Perth-Wellington. This has literally been ground zero for the tourism, hospitality industry, the accommodation sector, and the impact that the pandemic has had on these sectors has been beyond words so often. So I was so proud when Aaron O'Toole released our platform on the first full day of the campaign that he addressed so many of the issues that we face here in Perth-Wellington, the small business concerns, the need for rural broadband in every single household across Perth-Wellington and across Canada, the importance of acknowledging that we are in a housing crisis, that the cost and affordability of housing, the cost of living has gone up, addressing those issues, and support for seniors. Seniors who built this country, seniors who've worked hard all their lives and now want to live in dignity in their retirement years, and support for those who are living with disabilities, who have often felt challenges in addressing the needs of our society. And finally, rural tourism is a key component within our platform. This is an opportunity where we can not only expand but thrive here in Perth-Wellington. So again, my name is John Nader. I'm honored to be the Conservative candidate here in Perth-Wellington, and on September 20th, I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to get into the question portion of the debate. What we're going to do is I'll ask the first question, and we'll be going to the People's Party of Canada. We'll allow Brendan to respond, and then we'll open it up to debate. So, Wayne, we're going to ask you this question. You have 1 minute to respond. Brendan, you'll have a minute as a follow-up, and then we will open it up to debate and then move down the road that way. The national policies that are set impact all of us, definitely the business community. It's been a matter of survival that has made the past year so difficult for the businesses around this area. Businesses are looking for leadership at a local level, and what's going to happen in the next coming months is going to be crucial, if not years for that matter too. Wayne, what would your party do to help small business recover?
That's a really good question. I'm a small business owner. Small business is critical to our economy, critical to our well-being, and critical to our recovery. There is one commonality amongst small businesses, at least based on my experience. We function best without government in our face. We really need to open the economy up, open up opportunity, and get government's interference out of our lives or out of our businesses. So that's what the People's Party of Canada would promote is a freer, more open marketplace.
Brendan, you've got 1 minute to respond.
Well, I was happy to see that one of the first
And if you can
announcements...
get closer to the microphone too, please.
I was happy to see that one of the first announcements from a new Liberal mandate was to help the arts and culture sector, more specifically to help them bridge through the winter months and to bring in various different supports like a ticket matching program. As we all know, the tourism is going to be probably the last sector to recover out of the pandemic, and it's going to need continued advocacy as the situation changes over time. But businesses themselves are going to need help bringing back their workforce, help to mitigate the costs that they put forward in COVID. And the Liberal Party has been there throughout the pandemic to provide a suite of supports. And I think local advocacy for local area is going to be crucial in order for our area to get through and thrive post-COVID.
Okay. We'll open it up for debate. John or Kevin, if you'd like to respond and get involved in the debate as well.
Yeah, if I could.
Yeah, please.
Thanks. I'd just like to speak to the Liberal platform on ticket matching. I guess as an artist myself, I find programs like that sometimes challenging, a top-down approach that would put the money into the building and not into the people, not into the artists. We have a very large artistic community in this area, and they have been struggling, and if not for the NDP forcing the Liberals to increase the benefits to get us all through, they may not still be in this community. So those supports need to start with the people first, I believe, and not a bureaucratic program that will put the money into the buildings. Thank you.
John, if you'd like to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these last 18 months have been devastating for so many small businesses. And, you know, I know when I'm getting emails with the date or the time at 3:00 a.m., you can picture the business owner, they're at their kitchen table, they're trying to calculate the numbers, trying to see if they make ends meet that month. And it's been tough. And so going forward, we need plans and supports to make sure that we can not only see these businesses recover, but actually thrive as well. So in our platform, we have a number of different specific programs to help businesses not only revive but also move forward. So we have the Job Surge Plan, which matches provides up to 25 to 50% of a new hire's salary, so the business can not only expand but grow as well. The Main Street Tax Credit to encourage investments in our local downtowns, our local communities, our local businesses, rather than seeing that money leave the community. And then also a program what you can call a Super SEBA, which provides a larger amount of funding so the businesses can actually go out, buy new equipment, expand, get back on their feet, and actually invest in new and innovative technologies and opportunities here in Perth-Wellington. We have amazing businesses here, and with a little bit of support, they can be even better.
Okay, we still got time, I believe, in this, don't we, Gwen? Regarding that, and regarding tax credits, anything like that for small business in this area have been crying for other things. Not so much loans, but they do need other items to help them through the recovery program. What would your party do? And I'll open this to the floor. Whoever wants to jump in right now. John, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the Super SEBA has a $50,000 non-refundable component. So that's basically a grant then, which is a huge opportunity. The other thing I want to point out too is what's missed so much in the last 18 months has been the new and new-ish businesses that have been completely left out of government support programs. I've raised this issue time and time again with government ministers on the floor of the House of Commons. Those who had the misfortune of opening literally during the first days of the pandemic have been completely left out of these support programs, and we've advocated for that.
Okay.
And I'm glad that the
15 seconds if anybody else would like to respond.
I think beyond the supports that we need to continue to give to our small businesses, we need to look at the larger issue. We have jobs here. We have a lot of jobs in this community. What we don't have is enough housing for those workers. We can't get them here if we don't have a place to put them, and the NDP has a very large and comprehensive plan to do just that.
Thanks, Kevin. And please jump in whenever you feel the need. We do have a few minutes remaining. The second debate question will toss us to our Conservative candidate. We'll give it to you for 1 minute to respond, and then Kevin, if you'd like to respond on the backside of that. Businesses, if we can continue with that theme right now, not only suffering from the lockdowns, but from coast to coast to coast, we have this problem with finding workers and finding affordable accommodations. Not just a Stratford problem. This is beyond a Perth-Wellington problem. How would your party handle this problem. John?
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. And that's been a common refrain of the last 5.5 years that I've had the honor to be an MP. I talk to small businesses and medium-sized businesses that would literally hire 5 to 10 people on the spot if they walked in their door. And they just don't have the people to fill those jobs. And there's a few components to that. Housing is certainly one of them. Transportation is the other challenge. The Perth County Connect is a great option. Obviously, it's, getting off the ground during the pandemic is a challenge. There has been funding announced for rural transportation, but it hasn't flown down to local communities. In terms of housing, the big challenge we've seen is that different communities have applied for what's called the Rapid Housing Initiative, but have been blocked out. They haven't received any funding, whether it's in Stratford or Listowel who've applied. They haven't got any because the criteria is geared towards larger urban centers. We need to have a rural lens on housing, on affordability, so that communities like Stratford, like those in Perth County, can access those funding so that we can have housing that is affordable, attainable, and able to address those concerns.
Thank you for that. Kevin, you've got 1 minute for your response, and then we'll open it up to the others for debate.
Yeah, the NDP is the only party that is putting affordable rental units first. There's lots of talk about housing prices. Many Canadians right now can't afford a house. The NDP plans to build 500,000 units in the next 10 years, 250,000 of those in the next 5. Those are affordable, sustainable housing units, rental properties that young families can step into and save money in the good jobs they're working here, and then invest that money later into their homes. We also plan to subsidize some of those struggling families with a $5,000 rent subsidy. We're the only party that is looking to do this on a large and small scale through all of our communities across this country, focusing on getting families into homes as quickly as possible.
Okay, we've got 3 minutes. If anybody would like to jump in, Brandon, I see you taking your mask off.
Thank you. Yeah, labor, especially in smaller towns, are very important, and that's why the Liberal Party extended the Canadian Recovery Hiring Program until March. Also, there's a suite of options in order to get more employees into sectors where we can't find local help to fill them, whether it's like reforming the immigration programs or pathways for permanent residents, or new programs that have people who are vulnerable or don't have various different needs, have wraparound programs so that they can still have childcare or housing in order to still have the opportunity to get better paying and livable wage jobs. As far as housing, the Liberal Party has promised a suite of housing initiatives, including not only the national housing strategy that we started, but more money for rapid housing, affordable housing, and a commitment to build.
Yeah, Wayne, by all means, if you want to jump in, I see you wanting to say something.
We have a time limit here, do we not?
Yeah, but go ahead. You still got time, Wayne.
Yeah. Number one, the issue is not affordable housing. It's about affordable home ownership. We live in the most sparsely populated country in this, pretty well the most sparsely populated country in this planet. I find it inexcusable that we can't find appropriate and good housing and give younger families the opportunity to start with less expensive housing, maybe less classy housing, but we really need to focus on getting the gatekeepers out of the way. Most of the gatekeepers are in a provincial and municipal level. As far as the federal is concerned, we need to encourage that kind of mentality. We have a lot of marginal land. I'm not for developing farmland. We need our farmland for.
Yeah, Brendan, I know you wanted to jump in as well.
Yeah, I agree. There needs to be more opportunities for young people to get into housing, and that's why we're putting forward like a tax-free savings account for people under 40 to save up to $40,000 for a new home.
But saving when the price of housing is going way beyond a family's ability to save, then that's really a useless option to
Yeah.
have
And
a
if there's no,
building.
if there's no supply, then Brendan, then there's no point in saving. We need to increase the amount of homes we have for people. Having them put money away for it, how does that work if there isn't a supply? If there isn't homes for them to rent or to buy?
Yeah, and that's why there's a commitment to 1.4 new buildings and renovated buildings, money for multi-generational homes. And
Brendan,
then
I'm going to cut
address
you
the
off
home
there. We're going to
buyers
come back to
act.
that when we've got more time for open debate on this sort of thing, too. Our third question, we'll give it to our NDP candidate here this evening, and then Brendan will let you respond for 1 minute afterwards. Kevin, since we're talking about housing, housing supply issues have a significant impact on long-term housing affordability. What can the federal government do to help with supply of housing? And if elected, would your government be willing to work with provincial, with territorial, municipal governments to address affordability?
Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a pillar of our platform. The NDP is about having conversations and partnerships. Our biggest pillar is affordable, sustainable housing. As I said, 500,000 affordable units in the next 10 years. The government is going to waive the federal HST on the construction of new affordable units to encourage those builds. We want to increase for new home buyers to a 30-year mortgage. We want to reintroduce a 30-year term, which will make your payments more affordable. Double the home buyer's tax credit to $10,000. We also want to introduce models for mortgages for co-ownership, which has been a challenge for people trying to do that, but we can do multi-generational and even groups of friends, young people in their 20s, 4 or 5 of them can co-own a home together, build equity, and then when they start to have their own families, they can move out. We also want to present some fast start funds for co-ops and social housing, so groups can get together and begin to build those kinds of communities within Perth-Wellington.
Thanks, Kevin. Brendan, you've got a minute to respond, and then we'll open it up to debate.
Yeah, it's a challenging topic, and that's why I think one policy is not going to be the silver bullet. And so I mentioned a few, but even a homes buyer's bill of rights where blind bidding is no longer be permitted, and that you have a right to home inspection, so that prices aren't bid up out of control. You know, the rent to own program to bring forward, so that as people are paying for their place to live, they can build up equity. But there's also a growing homelessness problem that needs also to be addressed as well, not just through the affordable home program, but a real focus on the contributing factors to people in homelessness, and that's why we put forward an advocate to address those issues specifically with new programs.
Thank you, Brendan. I know John wanted to respond, and then if Wayne, you want to jump in as well, but the floor is open. We'll open this up for a 3-minute debate.
Thanks, Eddie. And I do want to agree with something that Mr. Kruskovich said about supply issues. That is one of the major concerns. There's simply not enough housing being built or being renovated to address the needs of Canadians. And so that's a major issue. So we need incentives to have purpose-built homes and rental units as well. Mr. Kevin's, I'm going to call you Kevin. I hope you don't mind.
That's fine, John.
Kevin's absolutely right. You need the rental units as well. So we do have parts of our platform, including with capital gains, to incentivize purpose-built rental units, especially in rural communities like ours, where you need those rental units for some of the jobs. We also need to fix a stress test for mortgages, and we need to look at where we can use federal land that's already existing for housing that is affordable and affordable housing, both sides of things, because Canadians need a place to live and they need a place to grow.
Wayne?
Yeah, something that we're not addressing. I went through this when I was younger and earning less income. I was fortunate enough to find an older lady that had a home that was more than she could handle. She was a widow, and there were 3 gentlemen lived in her house, and I was one of whom. And she boarded us. And it was really, it was a win-win for the older lady, and it was a win-win for the boarders. We need to bring that back to our culture, that kind of mentality where there's a lot of older people rattling around in their own home by themselves or couples. I know I spent Saturday with a gentleman that opened his home up to boarders, and it works well.
Okay,
So-
Kevin, I know you wanted to respond.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to something John had said about federal lands. The Conservatives have said 15% of Crown land will be used, but it'll be presented to private developers. I think we've seen this before. I don't know where the checks and balances are to encourage affordability. We've seen promises of affordability, but we're giving away Crown land to private developers.
If we're doing the Crown land idea, why not develop the lots and then make the lots available to young families and let them build themselves, let them learn the value of their own home and build their equity with that.
Okay, John, we've got about 15 seconds left.
Very quickly, at the end of the day, I don't think very many people want to see the government in the real estate business. That is not the business that the government ought to be in. We have experts in the real estate industry who can do that. We have we can put in strict regulatory approaches and work it that way. But no one wants to see the government as a developer, and I see the yellow card.
Yeah.
So we want to give the land away to private developers then?
It will
That's
be
the-
given
that's the
that
approach?
market value within the marketplace.
Right, with any sort of checks and balances on affordability?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, yeah.
Okay. Fourth question that we've got before we get to questions from the floor. And my friends, please, we've got runners around here. They're going to be taking your questions. We'll also be getting stuff from our YouTube followers as well, anybody that's watching it online. But any questions you have, please raise your hand and we'll make sure that we get a paper over to you as well. We'll throw this over to Brendan and Wayne to respond afterwards. Brendan, how do you intend to support first-time home buyers? I think I'd like to stick with this theme right now, just supporting first-time home buyers across the country that are struggling to find housing that meets their needs. We hear from the United Way about the living wage. We see in some of the larger centers a lot of empty real estate. People are sitting on that sort of thing. And do we need to bring back rent controls when we see rents in this area that are, I know it's supply and demand, but is that something we need to look at? Brendan.
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, like I think it's going to take a multiple amount of things in order for younger people to enter in the market, especially as it's readjusting post-COVID. But so, you know, depending like on what an individual or couple situation is, like the rent-to-own program can provide an opportunity for them to put equity into their home while they're renting. The tax-free savings account, but also working with the federal government, working directly with municipalities to build more affordable housing, more available housing and renovation of existing areas will increase the opportunity for young people to enter into the market.
Okay. Wayne, give you a minute to respond.
The real estate market has traditionally, up until the gatekeepers got in the way, has traditionally gone through a cycle where the market accelerates, it peaks, it falls, it accelerates, it peaks, it falls, and it keeps everything in range with people's incomes and people's ability to buy and sell houses. It keeps the market fairly robust and evenly distributed amongst the first-time home buyers and the secondary and tertiary buyers. But what's happened in the last 30 years is we've got these gatekeepers that have come in and they've stopped development or slowed development down to the point where the demand is far exceeding the supply. And we need to get these gatekeepers out of the way. Unfortunately, it's not a federal issue. It's a provincial and municipal issue.
Okay. John, I know you wanted to respond, and we'll open the floor up. 3 minutes, gentlemen. John?
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. And there certainly is a federal component to this. There's a huge federal component to this. First of all, there needs to be a full-scale investigation, especially in the larger urban centers, the Vancouvers, the Torontos, the Montreals of the world, where money laundering has driven up the real estate market. There's also the challenge of speculative purchasing by foreign non-residents in Canada who purchase properties for the speculation value of it. And so those properties are off the market, but they're driving up the price and they're reducing the supply. And we're seeing that here. I know there's some realtors in the room who've seen the outflow from larger urban centers driving up some of the prices here. So that's a huge component that the federal government has a role to play. Also on the mortgage side of things, fixing the stress test so that a young homeowner isn't locked into a single lender when they go to renew the mortgage because of the stress test. That was something that was changed in the early part of Mr. Trudeau's first mandate, and it's still having an impact now. Finally, very quickly, CMHC. CMHC is charging far more fees than they need to, and it's going back into the government coffers. So it's basically a tax on mortgages, a tax on home ownership to the tune of over $4 billion that was more taken than needed by the CMHC and ended up in government coffers rather than back to the homeowners who paid in. And so those are some of the issues at the federal level. There's certainly an area for them to play.
Okay. Kevin, I saw you writing some stuff down. What have you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think the component that's missing, there's some points being made, but the component that's missing is that we have an entire section of the population that gets forgotten within these discussions. We're talking about home ownership, and that's very important. But we have a vulnerable section of society that we need to get into homes now. So we need to support that, I believe, first. That's all I wanted to say. I just didn't want to forget the fact that we have young families, young people struggling, and we don't have the supply. We don't have a place for them to live.
So do we increase wages?
Well,
is that one of the NDP platforms?
It is one of the NDP platforms to provide a living wage to people. Mm-hmm. That needs to begin so we can start to try to balance this out. If we put pressures on that, if we add rental units, we're going to put pressures on the housing market. That's going to bring that down eventually over time, but that's going to take time. So we need the rental units first, and we need to up the living wage. And we need to reduce the cost of living. Pharmacare. Mm-hmm. Pharmacare will reduce a family's cost of living $550 on average, $550. And that's big for any family.
Okay, John, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on a couple of the points, and I agree with Kevin on some of this. Housing is important. Housing is exceptionally important, not just on having a roof over your head, but affecting so many things beyond that. The health of the residents is so much improved. The ability to seek employment, the ability to seek training, the ability to seek mental health services, all of that is affected by the ability to have a roof over one's head. I see the yellow card is up because I could go on with this, but I thank you for that.
Thank you. And we are now going to look at some of the questions that have been submitted from the audience, and we'll open it up for debate. And we'll throw this open to anyone right now. Okay. This one is, and if it is directed, I'll certainly direct it to the individual candidate. With the economic uncertainty past few years, first-time home buyers are finding it more and more difficult. So once again, we're going back to this issue again. Affordable housing outside of the major urban centers due to competitive demand. What will you do to ensure home buyers, such as young adults like me, that will have access to affordable housing in our smaller communities? And I know that you put Stratford and surrounding areas, but let's face it, we've got people that are retiring from Toronto, they're coming here, and they're bumping up the real estate in this area. But yeah, if you're a young home buyer, I'm hearing of youngsters that are going into the first-time home market, and they're having to spend $700,000 now. John, you just had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. I mean, for curiosity's sake, I often go on Realtor.ca to see what's out there. And last time I checked, in my hometown of Mitchell, there was one house for sale. One house for sale in the entire town of Mitchell. And that's not unusual for other smaller communities as well. There's very few, and when they're on the market, they get sold quick. And again, it goes back to the ability to have a unit, have the option there. It goes back to supply, going back to having enough options there. And it does go to working with different communities and getting out some of the blockages. You know, I know of different developments that have been tied up through the LPAT process provincially.
Yeah. Anybody else? Brendan?
I think it's important to level the playing field with the Home Builders Bill of Rights. Then with no more blind bidding, you have an idea of what you can afford and what is listed, and not find out that you're outbidded by an astronomical amount. There's also establishing like an anti-flipping tax, so that you're going up against people who are actually buying the residence for their primary residence.
Yeah. Wayne, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add that we need to start thinking outside the box. I know for a lot of years, mobile homes and mobile home parks were a reality in our province. Powers that be have decided that that's not an appropriate form of housing anymore. And yet, in terms of affordability, I think it's a phenomenal option for young families and young people trying to get into the market.
Absolutely. Kevin, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, I think we need to look at options, especially for young families. Co-housing, we want to present a model for mortgages to be able to co-house. It's much more common in urban center, but I think it translates well to our smaller communities where families, generations, or groups of friends can get together. And we have big, beautiful houses in this region, gorgeous old brick houses that can house 10 people in it. You get a group together, it becomes affordable in that way. So we need to start looking at that, retrofitting some of the homes we have, some that are sitting empty, some that have been used by speculators for co-housing options.
Okay, going to go to John, Wayne, and then Brendan. That'll wrap up this question.
And very quickly, the Liberal plan is, anti-flipping and blind bidding, banning those things. But the challenge that the Liberal platform had when they did that is they didn't consult. They didn't consult with the real estate industry about how that would impact them, and they didn't consult with their own candidates, or else they would have realized that one of their Vancouver candidates was making millions off of flipping houses in his riding. So they really failed to actually talk to the people who are experts in this field, talking to people who are actually living this on a day-to-day basis and who have ideas. And again, going back to to housing that's affordable and affordable housing, we have to go back and look at a rural lens at these government programs to ensure that they're tuned to smaller rural communities and not the one-size-fit-all, which we saw us completely blanked out at the recent funding announcements because our communities don't meet those criteria.
Wayne?
Yeah, just a little criticism for Kevin's idea about co-ownership. I think potentially it could have merit, but we're all individuals. We tend to like our own space, and it can create a lot more problems and issues than it can actually solve. And not only that, but like John said earlier, there's only one house in Mitchell for sale, so we can't really incorporate that idea if the inventory isn't there to use.
Yeah. Brendan, we'll give you the final word here.
I think also affording a house is a greater affordability issue, and so coming out of post-secondary, you usually have your student loans you have to consider. You have children, you have to consider how much childcare is going to be, and factor that in, and how you can pay for a down payment, how you can pay for monthly costs and getting by. And I think that's why it's important to address not only just housing, but the things around housing, like affordable childcare, $10 a day childcare, eliminating the interest on student loans, and helping students finance and pay their loans off faster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw a TV commercial today. Apparently, we're running out of real estate agents. You can now go and take a program on how to become a real estate agent now. So, good conversation on that, gentlemen. Next question. We all know we've got some of the richest soil in Ontario, if not Canada, around here. A good deal of Perth-Wellington is agricultural. We are losing valuable farmland to urban growth. Have you got any ideas or solutions to stop this? We'll open it to the floor, whoever wants to jump in first. John?
Yeah, absolutely. When we're looking at farmland, we're not making any more of it. What we've got is all we've got. And so when we see different projects being proposed on farmland, I've raised concerns about that from the past. I've publicly raised concerns about that in the past, and I think anyone who was following that debate last fall would know my point of view on that. The second thing is densification. Seniors housing is another issue there. You need that densification within communities. So the infilling of lots and the ability to avoid taking more of that farmland out of production, because like I said, you're not making any more of it.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to jump in, Brandon?
Yeah, I think the farmland issue is a problem, and I think everyone has been following like the MZO issues, and I know it's mostly a provincial problem, and that's why we need a strong advocate at the federal level as well, right? Like the preserving of lands is in parks, and building more national parks, urban parks is a strong component of a Liberal plan. But there needs to be an ally in Ottawa for the farming community, so they don't have to consider making all farmland part of the Greenbelt in order to protect themselves from the Ford government.
Yeah. Wayne, we'll give you the last word.
Yeah, farming is absolutely critical, not only to our well-being now, but to our future. We absolutely have to protect our farmland. That's non-negotiable. Canada is a huge country. It's sparsely populated. I'm sure that there are innovative people and innovative ideas that can develop residential potentials up on the shield, up where farmland is not viable, where we have, and now that's not helping Perth-Wellington per se, but we do have a housing issue, and we do need to address it, and we do have the land available. We just need to figure out how to make it work.
Thank you for that. We want to get to as many questions as possible from Pat. Now that we've heard each of your party lines, I would like to know what you're willing to do to represent residents of this riding. Are you willing to vote against your own party if the legislation is not wanted for your constituents? Are you willing to introduce a private member's bill to help your riding? In other words, are you willing to put your seat in Parliament on the line to better represent the riding? We'll open it up. Kevin, we'll give you the first word.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're a grassroots party. We're a party that's about conversations and partnerships. So we are encouraged to represent our constituents in a very real and honest way. We won't need to toe the party line. What we'll need to do is protect the people in our constituency, and that's my commitment to Pat and to everyone out there.
Okay. John?
I would say, look at my voting record. There have been times where I've voted with the majority in my party, and there's times I've voted against my own party. In fact, there's once I voted on an NDP bill and was one of only a handful of Conservatives who voted in favor of it. And I never once felt the pressure of my own party or of my party whip for voting that way. The fact of the matter is at the end of the day, if it's a good policy for Perth-Wellington, it's a good policy for Perth-Wellington, and that's my first and last loyalty is to people in this room and the people across Perth-Wellington that I'm honored to serve.
Okay, Brandon?
Yeah, I think it's important for the elected member to vote for the best interests of their community, and also to put forward private members' bills that help their community and not for partisan reasons. And that also includes amendments in committees to bills and putting forward petitions. Any form of legislative tool should be used to best put forward the issues of the community.
Okay.
And I'd like to do that.
Yes, I like that question. There's certain aspects, according to my understanding of Parliament, there are certain aspects where we might have to be whipped into place, especially when it comes to budgetary issues or issues that could affect government itself. But when it comes to more open issues, I would definitely stand in favor of issues that affect Perth-Wellington, especially if they affect Perth-Wellington favorably. I would stand up for the riding as a whole, yes.
Okay, any better, Kevin? Yeah. Okay. I want to get to other questions here, and you knew this one was going to come up. Vaccine passports, do we need it? Anybody want to start open with this one?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in. I think we're seeing a lack of leadership at the federal level, stepping back, putting hands in the air and saying, well, it's up to the provinces, and then we see the provinces doing the same, and then it's passed on down to the businesses, and then eventually on a Sunday afternoon it's going to be passed on down to a 17-year-old who's working the counter in your local coffee shop. It's unfair and it's unkind. We need a federal passport so we don't have 13 apps on our phones if we're traveling cross-country. We need one app, one vaccine passport so we can travel internationally, domestically, and we need to mandate it, and that's the NDP's position on that.
Brendan?
Yeah, the federal government has put forward a federal passport, and they'd be willing to work with the provinces, but Jason Kenney and Alberta wouldn't share the data, and Doug Ford came out against it. So in order to get something for the provinces as quickly as possible, they put forward money and support so that each province can put forward a certificate or passport as quickly as possible. Combined with that, they put mandatory vaccinations for all federally regulated industries. And so I think they have been clear on the need in order to protect people and have some sort of tool for people and businesses, including put forward initiative to protect businesses from litigation. And I know businesses are having trouble with mask mandates, and I'm sure having problems with requiring people to abide by the vaccine passport as well. They're afraid of litigation.
Okay.
So.
Wayne?
Yeah, how many people want to wear these masks? Okay. Let's accept the fact here. The genie's out of the box or out of the bottle. The Pandora's out of the box. There is no putting this virus back in the bottle. It's in our environment. It's a fact of life. As far as the COVID passport's concerned, we have real scary implications if we go through with that. It's reminiscent of the Chinese Communist Party social credit system. Either you conform or you don't. And if you conform, you get the goodies. You get to travel. You get to do what you want to do. If you don't conform, then you're restricted to not being able to go restaurants. No, this has got to stop. It's got to stop now. This is just insane. We need to accept the fact that the genie's out of the bottle, and it's time to move on with our lives.
Okay, John, you wanted to respond? Brandon, we'll come to you after John had his hand up first.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. I just want to say something very, very quickly. Is that anyone out there who is concerned about the vaccine, anyone who has questions or is hesitant about it, I just want to say, please talk to your family doctor. Talk to a healthcare professional. Talk to someone who's knowledgeable on the subject, who can give you personalized advice on it. I'm very proud to have got my vaccine. I got it as soon as I was eligible. I was online hitting refresh on the HPPH website, and I got it right away. With rights, there come responsibilities. And so in a society, we need to take care of each other. We need to look out for each other. And, these, they can be a nuisance. But if this saves the life of a person in a long-term care home, if this saves the lives of a child who might be immunocompromised, it's a small price to pay to save that child's life and to protect them from getting sick. So, there's a lot of things that have happened over the last year and a half that have been of pain, and I do have concerns about the impact that it would have on small businesses, like the 17-year-old who will have to check, and we need to work on that. We need to find ways. But at the end of the day, wearing a mask, it's not the end of the world. I'd love to see the day where we can get beyond that. I hope that's coming. But we need to get to the point where we can move together as a society, and looking out for one another is something that's Canadian value.
Brandon, then Wayne.
Yeah, what we don't need is another shutdown. What we don't need is schools being closed. What we need is this current fourth wave of the unvaccinated people to get vaccinated so that our children are safe, so that we can carry on and get past this pandemic. And it's a choice if you do or don't want to get the vaccine, but with that choice comes responsibilities. And so if you choose not to get the vaccine, then you can't go in on a plane and affect the rest of the people. Like we have stayed home. We've gone through lockdowns. The majority of us have done our part, And if you choose not to take the vaccine, fine, but that means there's consequences to come with that choice.
Okay. Wayne, you
That-
wanted to add?
That's not even an appropriate response. Number one, everyone that's been exposed to COVID, we have our immune system has adapted to COVID. We're virtually there are modifications. It's like the flu. It will morph and
But
it will
where's your
change.
source coming from when you're saying
What's
that?
that?
Where is your source coming from when you're saying our bodies are adapting
There's a
to it?
University of Guelph professor by the name of Bonnie Millard. And I have spoken, and she's an immunologist. Okay, I have listened to her. She's at the top of her bailiwick. There are things that we should implement before we go into the vaccine. First off, anyone that's been exposed to the virus, their immune system is far superior to any vaccine that we have. Second thing is we should have there are tests available to determine if we've been exposed. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Another question here. To the Liberal candidate, why are we having this election in the middle of a health emergency? Brendan.
Yeah, I know I get this question at the door as well. And, the federal government has acquired enough vaccination for everyone. And we need to finish the fight on COVID and start planning for the post-COVID, the next year of what are we going to invest in, what are the priorities that have been exposed because of COVID. We did not take care of people in long-term care. We were not talking about that enough in 2019. We're not talking enough about childcare, and we've seen a lot of people have to give up their job or not be able to have to stay home with their kids. And so some of these items, including healthcare, including what we haven't even talked about here, is the climate change emergency.
We're coming to that.
These are issues and these are priorities that we need to start to work towards after we finish this fight. And working in Queen's Park, seeing what's coming down from there, and the cuts and lack of investment is coming, is that we need to have a strong federal government.
Okay.
To make choices for people and businesses.
We're out of time on this one. John, you wanted to respond, and then we'll go to Kevin.
Well, let's be clear. The only reason Justin Trudeau called this election is because he thought he could get a quick majority. He was 14 or 15 seats off a majority. He thought he'd have a quick election. He was favorable in the polls. This is despite the fact that earlier this spring, all parties, every party represented in the House of Commons, voted in favor of not having an election until after this pandemic was over. They let their legislation that was so important to them die on the order paper. My own private member's bill, which would have protected young people and persons living with disabilities from exploitation, died on the order paper because the Liberal government decided they could maybe, just maybe, squeeze out a quick majority while the public wasn't paying attention.
Okay,
Yeah, these
Kevin?
have always been concerns. I'm just going to echo what John said. These have always been concerns, Brendan. They've always been concerns, and for the past 6 years, they haven't been dealt with. So to sort of trump them up now and say those are the reasons we're in an election is a bit disingenuous, if I'm being honest. We're in an election for one reason and one reason only, and we all know what it is. And these concerns weren't dealt with. There was lots of promises made 6 years ago, and there's promises being made now. I think it's time to make a different choice so we actually start to deal with some of these things.
Okay. Wayne, did you have anything to respond? If not, go ahead.
Frankly, I'm glad that we're having this election. I think we might get the Prime Minister that's really been a disgrace to our country out of office. That would be a really good thing to happen. So I'm in favor of this election now.
Okay. Brendan, do you have anything to add before we go on to the next question?
Well, no, obviously I didn't call for the election. I do think it's an opportunity for our community to advocate for the things that are important. And I think most of us feel that we need to do more on climate change, and we need representation that addresses that issue. We have currently a provincial government that isn't standing up for for what we need to get through the pandemic and for our teachers and healthcare. And we need to decide how we're going to address those issues going forward. And I know the NDP and Conservatives have said they don't want an election, but yet, they vote against the budget, which would, address these issues and provide help and real relief during these difficult times for people. So I think the voting is depending on what the party wants to project.
Okay, anybody else got anything before we move on? No? Okay. I'm glad this question was posed, because if COVID has taught us anything, it's the lack of broadband, especially for rural areas. This is a big problem. The Canadian Federation of Municipalities even put out their research into the broadband in rural areas. Connectivity is now important as roads and bridges to the sustainability of rural and remote communities. How would your government propose, and would you want to be putting more money into broadband? John, we'll start with you and then move on.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to talk and say as much as I can in my short time. First of all, every Canadian should be connected to high-speed internet by 2025, period, finished, no questions asked. That has to be done. Second thing, the Liberal speed on expanding rural broadband has been slower than dial-up. Last year, they promised the rapid stream of the Universal Broadband Fund. They were supposed to have projects completed by November of this year. As of today, less than half of that money has even been allocated. We need to look at spectrum auctions. We need to reserve spectrum for smaller rural communities. And I'm going to get in one last point really quickly. We need to look at our small local providers who are doing the yeoman's work and actually getting fiber to the concessions in the rural communities and get away from the major telecoms, the Rogers, the Bells of the world.
Okay. Would NDP put money into this?
Yes, we would. We think it's essential. We think everyone needs to have high-speed internet. We also think we need to be looking at all of the options. I don't think we can deal with it as a single issue with a single solution. I think we don't necessarily need to rip up concession roads and farmland for 5 or 6 years and lay fiber optics when we may have, and we may be able to partner where we have satellites and we have high-speed internet that is existing through a satellite network. We also want to create a crown corporation that's going to fill in those gaps, because we've seen the patchwork approach and we've seen the other parties ask big telecom nicely to please get high-speed internet to these rural areas, and they haven't, and they won't. So we need something larger and something more effective, which would be a crown corporation that would implement these changes.
Brendan, is this something the Liberals have looked at?
Well, I'm happy that the Liberal government continues to invest in broadband. But as a member from a rural community, I would like to bring forward some other issues to be addressed by the federal government, including funding for the last mile to have businesses hooked up. But one issue that I think gets missed by all parties is just the affordability of the service itself. There's people that have access now to broadband or to high speed, but can't afford to pay for it. And so I would like to, as a member of Perth-Wellington, bring that issue forward in the next government mandate.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think it's a technical challenge. If you drive out in the country, you go for a mile and see 2 or 3 houses, and that's it. In town, it's pretty easy to concentrate the service. I honestly think Elon Musk has the answer with his satellites. And I think that's probably the direction we need to go, is to maybe take advantage of the service that he will eventually be able to offer.
Okay. John, and then we'll go to Kevin.
Yeah, very briefly, on the low Earth orbit satellites through Elon Musk or through Telesat, it fills in gaps. But the fiber is still the backbone of the internet system. You still need fiber throughout the communities, even for wireless internet to get to the towers, to get to rural communities. So we need to, Telesat, Starlink can fill in gaps, but they still can't do the speeds that fiber has up to a single gig. Starlink, for example, can get up to 150, which is amazing. When I can get about, maybe if I'm lucky, 45 at home, 150 sounds amazing. But when you're talking about the anchors that are needed, you still still need the fiber in the ground, and seeing our rural communities doing that.
Well, Kevin, I know the festival has benefited just from us being able to watch some of the productions at home.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities. I know you wanted else to comment on that.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on the affordability. We would present a telecom consumer bill of rights, and we would demand that we would match sort of a global average. Our rates in this country are unfair and out of control. So we need to find some more transparency. We need to protect the consumer, and that's the plan for the NDP.
Okay. Next question as we move along here, could you please ask each party if they're going to solve how they would solve climate change, as without a healthy earth, we won't need homes. How would you handle the climate change problem that we're seeing? And even today when we've got these outbursts of thunderstorms and we've had 5 or 6 hurricanes in the south that have been moving up this direction as well. How do we handle climate change? Who wants to jump in first?
Yeah,
Kevin?
I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, obviously there isn't one single solution. There needs to be a comprehensive and holistic approach. Our approach is to create a new green infrastructure so we can create jobs and support people as we bridge to a net zero economy. Now, we have aggressive targets. I won't have time to get into all those aggressive targets, but it's about building an entire infrastructure that everything we do, retrofitting buildings, new training, water management, carbon capture, all of that is a part of one infrastructure that will create jobs, boost the economy, and lower our emissions so we can protect our planet.
Okay, John?
Yeah, thanks, Eddie, and a few different things. And obviously, our full platform is online. But to highlight a few things, and something that I think is relevant locally, is the role that our agricultural community already plays in terms of the environment, in sequestering and capturing carbon. It's benefiting, the environment. So let's reward the farmers and the farm families who are already doing that work. Looking at the broader scale, across the country, major industrial emitters. That's where a major focus has to be. And in one of our parts of our platform is to crack down on those major industrial emissions. Also putting infrastructure funding into water wastewater projects and working internationally to make sure that whatever we do is in concert with our international colleagues.
Okay, thank you. Brendan, you wanted to jump in. I saw you writing some stuff down.
Yeah. I think Canada needs to continue to be a leader, especially going into G20 and COP26 later on this year. And that's what really the biggest issue with this election is if we have an option to continue on with the price on carbon, to bring forward new initiatives like eliminating coal and exporting coal, to net zero vehicles, and the list goes on and on. But if we go a different path, we go back a decade in targets, and then we have to start all over again.
Okay. Wayne, what's Maxime Bernier's approach on this?
Well, I live in Canada. The climate changes about every 3 months. So as far as climate change is concerned, if we were absolutely critically concerned about it, we'd go out and stop buying trinkets from China because they're one of the worst polluters in the world. First off. Second off, we would, as far as I'm concerned, the carbon tax is nothing more than a cruelty tax with our current technology. We need to start coming up with, like, the biggest problem with our resources is we have no means outside of fossil fuels to store energy in a practical way. We need to start developing and working on technology that will allow the replacement of carbon fuels, a practical replacement of carbon fuels. Sorry.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. And Wayne, we're going to throw this one at you, a question for Wayne. With all of the horrible human rights injustices we're seeing in our neighbors to the south and around the world, how does your party plan to ensure that all Canadians feel safe in their communities?
We're all Canadians. We're all under one flag. We have functioned very well up until recently. The Americans have functioned very well up until recently. We're a Judeo-Christian nation. we need to go back to our Judeo-Christian roots. We need to learn to trust our neighbors again. We need to get out of this this distrust that that COVID has created, and we need to start to learn to trust our neighbors and work with our neighbors and appreciate our neighbors for who they are.
Okay, well, part two of that, this is another question that came in. And we'll throw this to everybody. How does your party propose to make communities more safe, inclusive, and welcoming to the LGBTQ and that demographic?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, please.
We're all Canadians. We're Canadians under one flag, and that's where it needs to end. We're strictly Canadians under one flag.
Okay.
And
Anybody else? Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, we need to do more than talk. There needs to be a ban on conversion therapy. The fact that a large number of conservatives voted against the torture of LGBTQ was very disappointing. We need to do things like get rid of the blood ban and do it on behavior-based instead of the discriminatory practices that are done now. It's a very simple thing to do. It hasn't been done. We've been waiting 6 years. There was some talk. We've been waiting 6 years for that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's done. It's a simple thing to repeal. It's a simple thing to change.
Right.
We need actual action. The time is over for talk. We need to show everyone that we are inclusive and accepting.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. John?
Again, I'm going to agree with my NDP friend up here as well. We do need to ban conversion therapy. It is a cruel and inhumane practice, and I voted in favor of that bill because it was the right thing to do. And I did get pushback from some people in the community, but I would say I got far more emails, phone calls, and support from across this riding for voting in favor of that bill because it was the right thing to do. Forcing a child to undergo discredited and inhumane practice is wrong, and it should be banned, period. On the blood ban, my Conservative colleague Eric Duncan has introduced legislation. Again, it's a single-page legislation. It's an easy fix. Again, because of the dissolution of Parliament in this election, that piece of legislation has been killed because of the election, and it won't be moving forward.
Kevin, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, I just need to know how you can reconcile yourself voting the way you did with your party that did not vote that way. So you are a bannerman for your party, and so I just do need to know, even just personally, how you can reconcile yourself to that.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a free vote on that issue. Each member of Parliament we talked about free votes earlier today. Each member of Parliament was able to vote their conscience on that. There were some concerns within Parliament, within members, about how the definition was worded. My point of view is that definition, if it is problematic, it can be fixed down the road. That was my point of view, and that's why I voted in favor of that bill, because it was the right thing to do, and it's a practice that's been discredited. The medical community has long discredited this practice, and it's the right thing to do to ban it.
Brendan, did you want to respond?
I would just agree with Kevin, both on the two issues and in the concern of a possible Conservative government, and when the government is in power, which way their vote. I think the community needs to know that their member and their government will stand strong on all these important issues, whether they're ones that are harmful to the community or just ones that will provide support for them, and whether it be over their service organizations so that they can express and advocate for the issues that are important to them.
Okay. Wayne, you had a response?
yeah, the concern I have is we're undermining parental authority, and we're undermining our family institution with this legislation. I think that's something a parent knows better than Big Brother or the state. I think that's where that kind of intervention needs to be left, is in the hands of the parents, and we need to look at the unintended consequences. Yeah, it's good sound bites that it's a cruel and inhumane thing to do, but I'm not aware of any parents, any sane parents, or any parents that have any semblance of care for their children, and most parents I know are well, pretty well every parent I know wants the best for their children. Mm-hmm. So to have the state invade a family and take the rights away from parents just because it sounds good that it's cruel and inhumane, that's wrong. That's terribly wrong.
Okay. John, we'll give you the final word before we get to the next question.
Very briefly to the Liberals, if this bill was so important that they thought this was an absolute priority, why did they call election and have it die on the order paper? That's exactly what happened. It was in the Senate. It was within days of being passed, but instead of actually passing it, they called an election to use it as a political wedge issue. No person, no human being should be used as a political wedge issue on something important as that.
Okay. Would you give?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I think if it was so important to the Conservative government, they wouldn't have stalled it in the Senate, had advocated, fundraised off it. Like they wouldn't have put so much effort to make sure that it wouldn't pass before the Senate rose for the summer. So.
Okay. We'll throw this out. Actually, Brendan, we'll start with you on this one, and then we'll work across the table. How is your party planning to implement the new national long-term care standards, including specified staff resident ratios based on hours of care per day?
So, like, as I mentioned before, like I work for a provincial member, and this was an extremely difficult topic or issue throughout the pandemic. Very tragic and very sad and hard to deal with the homes and the people that just felt powerless and angry over what we allowed happen in these homes. So the federal government during that time support by bringing in the military and the Red Cross, which was not always well received, but understand that going forward and even in this fourth wave that we need to invest more, including increasing the wage of PSWs, hiring more PSWs, and continuing to be there and to push the provincial government who continually drag their feet, whether it's the hours of care, whether it's addressing the different styles of home, whether they're private or public or municipally run, and having a standard across the board and really things in place that will protect people.
Right.
Going into these homes.
Yeah. Kevin, you wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those foundational issues that sort of patchwork approach of solving a few symptoms isn't going to do it. We plan on taking the profit out of long-term care for transparency and developing a national standard in conjunction that will line up with the same principles as the Canada Health Act. We need to remove profit out of it. We need to take care of our vulnerable citizens, and it is time that we step in and do that. Spend $5 billion on long-term care systems to get them up to a standard that we all agree and that can be regulated and will be transparent, so we can begin the care there at the foundation.
Okay. People's Party, Wayne, how would you handle this part?
Yeah. First question I have out to the audience: how many people work in long-term care? I mean, it is a vital part of our society, and yet out of the 100 people here, no one works in long-term care. It's a tough job. It's an awfully tough job, and yet we seem to think that we want to blame the poor people that are doing the best they can. As far as profit, Kevin, that's a good word. It's not a dirty word, and I think institution like homes can work for profit. We are able to monitor our food production quite efficiently, and yet we can't monitor proper care of our seniors. There's a lot of things that are wrong here.
Yeah. Okay. Brendan, you wanted to respond?
I agree with NDP that long-term care shouldn't be a profit-driven industry, but right now we don't have enough spots. So we have issues right now. Like if you want to get into a home now, there's a waiting list, and maybe you'd be lucky to still be in the same town as your family, or you may have to drive an hour away to see them. And so we need to address the issues facing today before we get to a bigger plan. And one of those is these people, the heroes that are working here are underpaid, and they have to work in multiple homes. And that's why we would put money towards that, so they can have a livable wage and work in one home, so they're not spreading the virus around.
John, you wanted to respond.
Yeah, a few points. First of all, there's probably no long-term care workers here because they've probably just finished a 12-hour shift and are tired on their feet, and will be up again tomorrow morning at 6:30 to do another 12-hour shift. So I don't know anyone who's actually blaming long-term care or healthcare workers. They are truly been the heroes this last 18 months. We need to invest in long-term care. $3 billion in the Conservative platform to upgrade long-term care homes. I know, having served on the board of a local long-term care home, the importance of upgrading the homes in time for the deadlines in the coming years. We also need to invest long-term in healthcare. So the Conservatives' plan commits to 6% over the next 10 years for $60 billion. And finally, there needs to be a criminal accountability for any provider, any operator of a long-term care home who neglects the residents. We need to amend the criminal code to make it clear that that operator is responsible criminally and liable for any of the actions that leads to the neglect of the people in those long-term care homes.
Okay. Thank you, John. 30 seconds, Wayne, you wanted to respond.
Yeah, I just want to make it very clear that, or don't misinterpret me, I'm not criticizing the caregivers. That's tough work. And we need to take our hats off, and we need to admire those people for their dedication and their resilience. It's hard work, and I won't take that away from them.
Okay, then what I'm confused about, what I'm hearing from you, because earlier on you were talking about no need for vaccine passports, yet here we are talking about those that we need to protect more than that's the part I don't understand from the People's Party.
There's a disconnect. I got cut off on the disconnect. Number one, anyone that's been exposed to the COVID-19 virus, their immune system is adapted. That's the idea of vaccines, is to give us the means to protect ourselves while relying on our immune system. Okay, so those people, number one, should be exempt from a vaccine passport because or vaccines period, because they don't need it.
Yeah, but how do we know though? Because anybody could be asymptomatic.
We were able to test and find out who had it. I know the health department has issued letters to friends of mine that had it. That letter stated that they no longer needed to worry about contracting the disease because they've already had it. So I mean, we have a track. We know who's had the disease. So they should, number one, be exempt. Number two, there's a test available that allows us to test ourselves or be tested as to whether or not we've been exposed to this virus. If we've been exposed to it, we have the antibodies in our system that are far superior than we can get from a vaccine. And number three, anyone that hasn't been exposed, that becomes a conversation between them and their healthcare professional.
Kevin?
I think.
I just like to speak that I didn't really want to get personal, but I think some of this talk is a bit dangerous. I contracted it last spring. I was in and out of the hospital twice. I developed pneumonia. It was probably the worst health issue I've ever gone through in my life. I'm a healthy guy. I do not wish it on anyone. I will wear a mask as long as it takes. I will take the vaccine to make sure that my grandparents, that your grandparents, that anyone never comes in contact with it. It's not a flu, and it's a dangerous virus, and I think we need to be very careful about how we are speaking about it.
Yeah.
I think we need to take care of each other. It's not hard. It's just the right thing to do.
Okay, Brandon?
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. I don't think that line of thinking is any comfort to anyone who has a loved one in a home right now and sees the numbers rising and the projections of what they can be in the coming months. I don't think it's any comfort to anyone who took their kids to school today and also watching on the news and what's happening south of the border and think that everything is just going to be okay if we don't put any measures in place. Like, we have the vaccine, we have various different tools to help keep people safe, and we need to use them and not trivialize people's suffering, as Kevin has just described one case of many in this country.
Well, I want to get through a few more questions, and time is pressing, and then we'll be getting the last few questions, and then we'll get to the closing remarks from our candidates. Can the candidates explain, and we'll start with John on this one, can the candidates explain how they will improve access to childcare? Affordability would be great, but even if you can afford to pay for it, there's a waiting list for years long, mostly due to staffing. How would you approach this, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eddie. And this is an issue that I hear about a fair bit across the community. As the parent of relatively young children as well, we've had childcare in the past, and in a variety of different means, both public and private-run facilities. And I think that's where a one-size-fits-all approach does not work. You need to have the broad range of care available. The Conservative platform will make it a refundable tax credit so that the lowest income families are the most helped by it. So 75% refunded for any low income family, the lowest income family who are looking for childcare. That's the first aspect of it, and making sure that they're the ones who are most looked after.
Right. Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, refunds sound good, but if there's no spots, if there's no childcare center near your home or in your small town, refunds don't do anything for us. We want to provide relief to reopen the nonprofit child care centers that have closed, as well as support new nonprofit child care centers opening, so we have a more balance. We have enough spots for families who are looking for it. That's our push, is to make sure we have enough availability. The $10 a day childcare is something we've pushed for many, many years, and it's something we always will push for. But right now, we are really looking at making sure we can get children into the childcare.
Right. Brandon, the Liberal approach to it.
Yeah, I think maybe most people have heard that the Liberal government has made essentially $10 a day daycare agreements with almost all the provinces, and there's still a few holdouts. But this is an important issue, not only an economic driving issue, women's issue, parental issue, but an issue that we debated and fought over in 2006 when we had an agreement, and then it was thrown away. And so the Liberal government would like to bring in a $10 a day daycare within 5 years or less, depending on the agreement for the province, reduce fees by 50% by next year, and provide supports for families so that they can work fully potentially at their careers and have options. It's also about creating spaces, not just even the affordability.
Yeah. Okay. We'll come back to that. I just want to get the PPC approach to this question.
Well, I find it interesting that childcare has become an issue after the state got involved. I know when my daughter was young, we sent, like, she went to a friend that had 5 children, and she just became number 6, and she was part of their family for an extended period of time. There are really good mothers who want to stay at home and look after their children, and they're willing to look after other children in order to offset their income, and also to help other families out. I think we need to open that back up.
Okay, John?
Just a couple points. Fathers and mothers, I should add. There are many fathers who also take equal parenting responsibilities, and I think we should.
I'm talking about stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads.
Stay-at-home dads as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We should be encouraging all families to take equal parenting responsibilities and make it work for how their families operate. Each family is unique, and each family is different. We shouldn't be stigmatizing or stereotyping what any individual family may be. I just want to very briefly comment on the Liberal plan. They see this plan as so important. This is the 8th or 9th election they promised it, going back to 1997. You have to think as well, if this was such a priority for them, why would they call an election and put their plan in jeopardy? Why wouldn't they rather actually try to implement their plan rather than going to an election,
Okay.
an unneeded election.
Okay, Brandon, we'll let you respond, and then we'll move on to the next question. Brandon?
Well, I think it's one of the factors in the election, right? We have conservative governments holding out, even though most of the parents would want the option to have affordable childcare, would like to not have to budget the cost of childcare that is competitive of what they pay for a house payment each month, and so that's one of the things on the ballot. Like, if there's a mandate to put forward affordable, reliable childcare system, the people here in Perth-Wellington, the people in Canada can vote for that option.
Okay. A couple more before we get to the final round. Where's the money going to be coming from for business? For business grants and personal handouts, where's that going to come from? Would taxes increase for the individual or the businesses, or is there another idea? We'll start with the NDP approach.
I think we're probably all aware that we want to tax the upper echelon. We want to tax the ultra wealthy. We want to make sure that they are paying their fair share. We're going to introduce a COVID-19 profit tax. We think there were some big loopholes in some of the subsidies, fine subsidies, big loopholes, 15% tax to roll back some of that money that some of those corporations took away. We're going to increase the capital gains inclusion rate to 75%. So speculation, your non-primary home, there'll be more taxes off of that.
Brandon, what's the Liberal approach?
Well, the Liberals have released their platform that's fully costed, and the only party to do so to show where exactly the priorities are and the spending and revenues will come from. So, with that, continue to support businesses, and like I said, continued advocating for certain sectors that need to recover from the pandemic, whether it's a bridging of wage subsidies, whether it's investments in order to give a break on rent and wages. But the federal government took a difficult situation and worked, I think, faster than most people thought in order to get vaccines and to open up the economy, which I think is the best boom.
We'll come back to that. Wayne, I'm going to get to you. We're going to go to John first about this.
Yeah, absolutely, Eddie. I mean, what we've seen in the last couple of years are record astronomical deficits, and I think that's to be expected. Frankly, we can argue about if they were too high or not. But that's that's beyond the point. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, there was already massive deficits beyond what was ever promised by the Liberal government. So the fiscal management was a mess beforehand. What our platform promises is to invest in stimulating the economy, in businesses that will get people back to work, get the economy functioning out again, so we can balance the budget over the long term. So we can do that without having to raise taxes on hardworking families and get people back to work rather than going further into debt.
Yeah, okay. And Wayne, how would you handle this approach with business?
Okay, the question is, where's the money coming from? Well, if we're true to the other parties, our great-grandchildren. But we're going in debt at the rate, this is a rate that's faster than the government's pulling money in. We're going in debt at the rate of approximately $40 billion an hour. That's unsustainable and inexcusable. I really believe that government needs to get out of the way of small business. I've self-financed 2 businesses in my life. It's not that hard to do, and I've scratch-built these 2 businesses from nothing. So I know what's involved. I know what it is to build a business, and get government out of the way, and let people do what they're good at. And they won't need to worry about getting money from the government.
Okay, Kevin, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, there's just a concern when Justin Trudeau mentioned that the economy would take care of itself. He was lambasted by the Conservatives, but what I'm hearing is that what you're saying is the economy is going to take care of itself. The Toronto Star costed your platform at $100 billion, and you're saying there's going to be no tax cuts. It's just you're going to stimulate the economy, and the economy will then just take care of itself.
John?
Yes, and so our platform is fully costed, fully analyzed. The Parliamentary Budget Officer is currently reviewing it as well for their perspective. Unfortunately, the rules of Parliament have meant that only certain parties have so far had their plans fully costed. But what we're looking at is a long-term investment in things that actually build the economy, things that actually get people to work, get people back into the economy, back into the workforce. That's where you're going to see the economy revive itself. You're going to see people who are working, contributing to the economy, paying taxes, and we can do that over the long term, responsibly, over the next decade.
Okay, Brandon?
Yeah, this plan put forward has 3% growth, factored in, which we haven't seen in like 30 years. And I think we've seen this before. We had these small tax breaks, these boutique tax credits, and then reduction of spending over years, and we're seeing that again provincially, where the last budget came out has the lowest amount of spending in it they've seen in the Parliamentary Budget Office has seen in 30 years. And so what that means is cuts. What that means is more labor disputes. What that means is not help for people. And so a plan that both helps people and everyone join the economic activity of this great country is what's going to pull us out of this. And that's why the Liberal government beat the growth projections from their budget to their projected for their platform, and because it's about investing in people like childcare so that everyone can be part of the solution.
Okay. John? One last question.
I know 3% growth might be a surprise for the Liberals after they saw the economy contract in the last quarter, but we're optimistic about the economy, and we're going to be pushing for growth. And we've seen it before, and we've done it before. The late Jim Flaherty, when we went into the economic turmoil of 2008, 2009, with record budget deficit, he made a commitment to balance the budget within 5 years, and he did that a year ahead of schedule. So we have the blueprint, we have the map forward.
Okay. Last question before we do our closing remarks. We'll start with Wayne on this one. How will you bring people into this area? We need workers everywhere, and the current plan is to increase jobs. From what the Conservatives say, we don't need jobs. This is what the question says. We need people to work the current jobs.
That's a really good question. I have customers that are just screaming for people to come and help. I know that a big problem is the CERB that we've supported over the last year and a half. It's easier to sit at home and collect the $2,000 a month paycheck than it is to actually go and show up at work and actually try and be productive. We need to encourage productivity. We need to encourage people to be more productive, and we need to encourage people to actually go out and get jobs.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, what we actually need is we need housing and we need a living wage. We need to tell Canadian workers that we respect them. We need to tell Canadian workers that they deserve to have things they want, like their groceries and their mortgage payments and time with family and friends. So if we have homes in this area for them, and if we are paying them a living wage, which 2 years ago was costed at $17.55 in Perth-Wellington, I'm sure it has gone up since then. That's what workers want now. I think we've all realized in this great pause that we've had that a lot of business models were actually exploitation models, and I think workers are waking up to that, and I think we need to respect it and take care of our working Canadians.
Okay, go to John and then Brandon.
Yeah, very, very quickly, trying to hit a few points. Housing, transportation, absolutely are huge issues in order to attract people to our communities. We also have to look at how we welcome new Canadians to our community as well. Looking at local businesses who've tried to use different programs through the immigration system, they simply haven't been working. I was particularly disappointed a couple years ago when the Liberal government denied funding to the County of Perth for a local immigration partnership to be able to bring those services to Perth County, be able to work together with the municipalities to bring in new Canadians and to expand our community, to fill some of the labor shortages and work at all levels of government to make this happen.
Okay. Brandon?
I agree that affordability is an issue, whether it become housing, transportation, or childcare. But there is some initiatives the Liberal has put forward, is like reforming the immigration programs to expand pathways for permanent residents, building on the economic mobility pathway project to bring in 2,000 refugees to fill labor shortages in healthcare, and the wraparound project solution project that I mentioned before, to have expanded services so that people can go to where the good jobs are, which we have many in this region.
Okay. Anybody else want to respond before we do closing comments? Okay. No one? Then why don't we'll start at the far end. Wayne, we'll give you 2 minutes if you would like to do just your closing comments, what you would like to tell people that may not have been addressed so far. 2 minutes.
My grandparents fought and died in a war. They sacrificed, they stepped out and they were willing to sacrifice their lives, their freedom, and their well-being. And they left a legacy that, for me, their kids sort of suffered the aftermath of the war, but the legacy that was left for me was absolutely amazing. And what we need to think about in the aftermath of this COVID is we need to think about what kind of legacy are we leaving for our grandchildren, our children and our grandchildren. Because right now, I'm ashamed to think that we are leaving a terrible, terrible legacy, a legacy of over $1 trillion in debt to our children and our grandchildren. We're leaving a legacy of unsustainably high housing costs. We're leaving a legacy of fear and of intimidation. We need to stand up, and we need to be bold. We need to assert our courage, and we need to move on with our lives. We need to leave a legacy for our grandkids we can be proud of. And right now, I'm not very proud of the legacy we're leaving. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
The Liberals, closing comment. Brendan, you've got 2 minutes.
I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and all of you for the great evening. I didn't go to the University of Waterloo to become a politician. I studied environmental studies and worked in toxicology labs studying wastewater and freshwater contaminants. But while working at Environment Canada, the timing coincided with Harper cuts to environmental protections, including monitoring water contamination remediation sites on Indigenous lands and legacy industrial sites. The Conservative cuts to environmental protection led me here today. When government make harmful choices that have lasting effects on the environment, our children's future is at risk, and people here in small communities need to stand up. I believe that the government and members of Parliament job is to serve the constituents and advocate for their issues. I believe this election in Perth-Wellington is about choosing a representative that best reflects their interests. We need to end the fight against COVID-19 to protect our children and the economy, make life more affordable for housing and childcare, support small businesses so we can fully recover from this pandemic. The majority of people in Canada and Perth-Wellington want action on climate change, and they want action now. I agree with them. We need to maintain the progress that the Liberals have made and go farther and faster. In the past, our representatives have voted against climate change again and again, and that needs to change. I grew up here. I'm proud to raise my family here. I would be honored to serve as your advocate for the community and in the riding. On September 20th, I ask for your support. Vote for change in Perth-Wellington. Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan. From the New Democrats, Kevin, you've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleagues, you, Eddie, and the Chamber of Commerce for this evening. We all know this quote: the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. For 154 years, 2 parties have swapped the leadership of this country back and forth until finally we find ourselves here. I'm a working class guy. My dad hauled cattle for a living. My mom worked for the school board. I've waterproofed houses in Vancouver, worked at a bookstore in Montreal. I've helped train executive MBAs at Ivy. I've redone kitchens and bathrooms in some of the prettiest homes here in Stratford. And I've worked on some of the largest and also some of the smallest theaters in Canada. I'm self-employed. My wife has a small boutique, who's trying to get a foothold in this community, and we used to be able to get by and have time for our family and our friends. But now, here where we find ourselves after years of inaction by our government, we are legitimately struggling, as I know a lot of you are. Life is not affordable. And working Canadians aren't falling through the cracks. No, the foundation they are standing on, that they've been told is solid, is crumbling under their feet. The only party that will roll up their sleeves and get to work at that foundational level is the NDP. Jagmeet Singh is the only leader with the courage and honesty to tackle these issues. And I feel I'm the only one who has the ability to understand and work with the changing demographics here in Perth-Wellington. Yes, we have many seniors, but we are quickly getting younger. We have an abundance of strong manufacturing jobs, but we are seeing a multitude of small artisanal businesses popping up. And we are a rural riding with a world-class artistic institution that anchors a vibrant tourist industry. All of that takes a very special approach, one that involves conversations and listening and leading with compassion and putting people first. And that is what I'll do. And that is my commitment to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. And finally, closing comments from the Conservatives, John Nader.
Yes, and thank you, Eddie, and thank you to the Chamber for once again putting on this event. It's been a wonderful conversation tonight, and I hope the conversation continues past tonight as well. There's still a little less than 2 weeks left, and I hope that over the coming weeks we continue to engage on the issues that matter to you and your families. Tonight we've heard a lot of promises. We've all talked about our platforms. We've all talked about the commitments we would like to make if we are have the honor of serving in government and serving as the Member of Parliament for this community. But there's one promise, there's one commitment that I make each and every election, and that is my personal and key commitment, and that's that I will work hard. I will work hard for every person in every community in every corner of Perth-Wellington. And I hope my record speaks for itself. Over the last 18 months alone, I participated in over 340 meetings with constituents, business owners, and stakeholders. I raised issues directly on 40 separate occasions with government ministers on the issues that mattered to this riding. I responded to 8,700 plus emails through my office, 1,300 phone calls from concerned citizens. I rose in the House of Commons on 27 separate occasions to raise the issues and concerns of the people of this riding. At the end of the day, my focus is on the people of Perth-Wellington, the local businesses, the families, and the communities that make this such a wonderful place to call home. I may not change the world as your Member of Parliament, but I do hope that in some small way I can help to contribute to improve the lives of the people who call this community home. My name is John Nader, and on September 20th, I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you to all of our candidates. I appreciate it. And to all of you in the audience, it's nice to be able to see faces again at a live event. And for those watching at home, I encourage you to stick around. Candidates will be able to speak with you afterwards. Rogers and Whiteman, I appreciate you being here tonight and recording this for a future broadcast. Thank a few people tonight for being here, including Shannon Stewart, who did a great job putting this whole thing together, the timers, the runners, digital moderators, Natalie Moore from More Creative, Cameron Ullman from Town Crier Marketing, and our sponsors, Farm & Co., Vancia Financial, Or Insurance and Investment, the Huron-Perth Association of Realtors, and everyone for coming out and watching and participating from home. Voting day is September 20th. Please get out to vote. Every election is made up of those who show up, so please get out and cast your vote. Have a safe night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Due to the length of the preceding program, we now join the regularly scheduled program already in progress.
My sister helped out a lot with my daughter. Yeah. So that's such a huge blessing. When I started last year, I was doing mostly watching my daughter all day. She goes to bed, and then I sew for like 5 hours.
Oh my God, that's tiring.
I don't know how you do that.
You are another Wonder Woman.
I was very close to nearing the point of burnout for sure. So I realized that I really had to change something.
Your health and wellness came first, and your family.
Yeah, for sure. So that was kind of the point where I hit the realization that I was like, okay, so I have to jump in, do this for real, and like really give myself a schedule, and really make sure that this is going to be a business that can support my family, because that's at the time when my mat leave was ending.
Your husband didn't say, sweetheart, you recognise your instincts were spot on, weren't they?
Yes.
Do you do like, I know you do the online resources, but do many people say, come to the baby shower for my friend because you can sell your clothes there? Does that happen very often?
Not usually. Most people just ask at the last minute for gifts for baby showers.
They order the gifts from you.
Yeah.
That's another good idea.
Yes, for sure. So I'll get a message like, oh, I have a baby shower this afternoon. Can I stop by and pick something up? I'm like, okay.
So you've got stuff there ready
to
for
go.
them.
A little bit. And I'm in a few stores around town as well. So you can stop in at the Sharing Squirrel in Cambridge or Bumble Baby Boutique in downtown Galt.
Oh, what a gorgeous name.
Amazing. She's got so much amazing stuff there. You can stop in there if you need a last minute gift idea, or maybe send me a message and might be able to help you out.
What is the secret to your success? I mean, you've given it all, haven't you? You've given us all your secrets.
Yeah, I think really just listening to my customers has been a huge part of it. Listening to myself and my instincts, I have to trust that I know what I'm doing, because I feel like my whole life has led me to this business, and all of my experience and my background has just come to a point where this business it just encompasses all of my hobbies and skills, and I have to trust that I know what's right.
And Steve has a favourite word for people like you, don't you? It begins with a P.
Yes, and I will say it, passion, and the passion is certainly radiant in just being on the show today. The one quick question I'm going to ask you is, how do you know when you've reached the capacity in terms of being able to create all the garments yourself?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm kind of at that head right now where the amount of garments that I'm making my day is full.
Wow.
Like I can barely operate on anything more than I currently can.
And you look so fresh and lovely. You don't look better. And you found the time to
I
come
don't
here.
stay up all night anymore sewing.
You know what, my angel? You are an inspiration. I wish I'd have known you in my day. I would have ordered all my baby clothes from you. So you know what, Steve? I wasn't sure whether you'd be too much into baby stuff, but the Etsy and the Shopify. I've had them too. I love the Small Business Show because I wanted to share to a wider audience how many business owners are out there who've made it to the top of their profession, and also the business owners who are not scared to say they failed.
I think some of the great things is we get to meet a lot of business owners in the community and learn about the inside successes and failures and bringing that to you. But it's also getting us to be able to help and share information with small businesses through private mentoring we've done before. We've brought it to the show in the last couple of years, and it's really, really caught on with the community.
Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m., it's the RTV Quiz. Giovanni Petiti hosts a weekly trivia competition that lets you play from the comfort of your couch. Play along at home and challenge your friends. And don't forget to follow along on social media. Let us know who's top of trivia, and you can find yourself featured on a future episode.
Are you kidding me, folks?
The RTV Quiz, Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV or at rogerstv.com/RTV Quiz.
This year's Wilmot Terry Fox Run is one day your way. While we can't be together in person, we will still be united in spirit. Register as an individual, family, or virtual team at wilmotterryfox.ca and start your fundraising effort. Then, on Sunday, September 19, do your Terry Fox run wherever you are, around your neighborhood, backyard, down the street, or around the block. Walk, ride, wheel, or run. Why? Because cancer research can't wait for COVID to be over. Because it's the 25th anniversary of the first Terry Fox run in our community. And because Terry asked us to try. Join us on September 19 for One Day Your Way at the 2021 Wilmot Terry Fox Run. Because Terry Fox lives here.
This federal election, Canadians want to know what's next for Canada. For Rogers TV, the focus is on local candidates addressing local issues. Get to know the candidates running in your riding with Rogers TV's coverage of the local campaign. And on election night, find out what's next with Election 21, the local results. Visit rogerstv.com for local coverage details.
This is Steve Bentley, and you're watching The Small Business Show. Welcome back to The Small Business Show. Oh man, the excitement, it takes me back to when I had babies, right?
Actually, Dave, I would like a baby. That's my husband.
Oh boy, Dave.
Not really, we're going to get a kitten. But no, amazing information for our viewers.
Yeah, and I think the passion and just the glow in our guest's Barb's face is just enough to say she loves the business she's in.
Yeah, and the resources that she's using, and now all the viewers know that it's quite simple, easy to navigate. Wonderful. I'm so happy we got you on the show.
And I think that's just a large demographic that we can even explore further, but unfortunately we only have so much time on a show. So we'll see you next time on The Small Business Show.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response Line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Are you a woman experiencing abuse? Do you know a woman experiencing abuse? Help is available any time of day or night. ShelterSafe.ca is an online map that helps you find a women's shelter or transition house that meets your needs so you can live a life free from violence. ShelterSafe.ca. Help is just a click away.
Her name is Phyllis Webstead, and she is a survivor from a dark period in Canadian history. Beginning in the 1830s, Indigenous children were taken from their families. They were sent away to residential schools and forced to abandon their traditions, languages, and culture. Phyllis remembers her first day at St. Joseph's Mission Residential School. The year was 1973. She was 6 years old, and she was wearing a new orange shirt, which was purchased by her grandmother. Arriving at the school, she was stripped of her clothes. She never wore that shirt again. To quote Phyllis, "My feelings didn't matter, no one cared, and I felt like I was worth nothing." The last residential school closed in 1996. Phyllis will never forget, nor should we. In 2013, Phyllis started the nationally commemorated Orange Shirt Day. On September 30th, wear something orange.
watching Rogers TV.